You remember when marketing was fun? When you had time to be creative and connect with your customers? With HubSpot, marketing can be fun again. Turn one piece of content into everything you need, know which prospects are ready to buy, and see all your campaign results in one place. Plus, it's easy to use, helping HubSpot customers double their leads in just 12 months, which means you have more time to, enjoy marketing again. Visit HubSpot.com to get started for free.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 5th. I'm Mark Dent, here with Ben Berkley, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. A little over 2 years ago, OpenAI introduced ChatGPT to the mainstream. But how quickly have Americans actually adopted to using these large language models of AI to help them, write stuff? There's been a lot of surveys about AI, but now Stanford University researchers have an answer, and it's actually quite quickly. We're going to get into all of the details about AI adoption in a few, but first, let's give you the hits and headlines today across business and tech. So there were a lot of headlines across business and tech the last couple of days. I'm not sure how many people would call them hits. But let's get to it and start with the biggest story of this week by far. The Trump tariffs are officially on, and the U.S. is now in a trade war. Yesterday, 25% tariffs went into effect on all goods from Mexico and Canada, and 10% tariffs on Chinese goods were doubled to 20%. So here's where it starts to get a little bit more complicated. In response to this, China retaliated with tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. Canada has also set tariffs on U.S. goods and plans to expand them in the coming weeks, and Mexico says it's going to announce its own retaliation measures on Sunday. So as a result of all this, here in the U.S., economists are predicting higher prices. Roughly 1/3 of all goods imported to the U.S. come from Mexico, China, and Canada. Target's CEO went on CNBC Tuesday morning and said that Americans should expect higher prices at its stores within just a few days. Not surprisingly, this unpredictability has thrown the stock market into disarray. The Dow and NASDAQ tumbled on Monday afternoon and again on Tuesday morning before recovering slightly in the afternoon on Tuesday. So that's it for tariffs for now, but there's probably much more to come. But let's move on to tech for right now. As of yesterday, Uber customers in Austin, Texas can now hail a driverless Waymo car when booking an UberX, Uber Green, Uber Comfort, or Uber Comfort electric ride for up to 4 people. This launch covers 37 square miles in Austin, and it follows a similar launch in Phoenix from 2023, and it's going to be followed by an expansion in Atlanta. Ben, you're somewhat of a Phoenix guy.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen these driverless Ubers?
I mean, I've seen them when visiting Phoenix. I live in Los Angeles right now and see them all the time. I've been torn on them because I wanted to get in one. I've kind of said, I think this is something I'm fully behind. And then the other day, and then I look forward to the lawsuit that I'm going to get here, I saw a Waymo car kind of struggle with lane lines that were not well marked. It didn't go well. And so it gave me pause, but this genie's not going back in the lamp. I think you're going to see them everywhere, and I hope whatever little glitch I saw is just a real nice anomaly of really poorly laid out lane lines in Los Angeles.
We all do. However, I feel like poorly laid out lane lines, poorly driven other cars on the road are all obstacles that these driverless vehicles are going to have to deal with, but pretty much everybody knows that. All right, let's stick with innovation. You may have heard of Colossal Bioscience. That's a Dallas-based startup that wants to bring back the woolly mammoth. It hasn't actually done anything close to that yet, but it did have some really surprising news yesterday. It announced that it made a woolly mouse by implanting genetically modified embryos in female mice. The result of this is a very fuzzy mouse with golden brown hair and fat that is apparently similar to a mammoth. So the company's probably still pretty far off from its plan to implant modified embryos in elephants and make the woolly mammoth. But one expert did say that the mice are pretty adorable, so it has that going for it.
I mean, if you saw the pictures, they're not wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It gives me hope the woolly mammoth's going to just they're going to put a little bit of a swerve on it. It's going to be extra cute.
Yeah, I mean, I think it needs to look like Dumbo with, hair, of course. But then I think people would be excited about a woolly mammoth. Otherwise, I'm just okay, a woolly mammoth. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to find a place with very high ceilings, just so I'm ready when they have the woolly mammoth available as a pet.
Yeah. Let's move on to banking. Goldman Sachs tends to have layoffs just about every year, but this year is shaping up to be different. According to the Wall Street Journal, Goldman will be targeting vice presidents, and it expects to lay off around 3 to 5% of its overall staff. The firm has already given a hint about who could be on the chopping block by giving them a smaller bonus this year. Does not sound good. And finally, some other news about cuts. If you're going under the knife, maybe don't schedule your surgery over the weekend. Pre-weekend surgeries have a 5% higher combined risk of deaths, complications, and short and long-term readmissions than those done earlier in the week, according to a new study that analyzed the data from nearly 500,000 patients. So what's behind this risk? It's likely because hospitals have less staffing on Fridays and over the weekend.
I mean, I think what's really interesting in this study is also Friday the 13th. Apparently, it's kind of like the same as any other Friday. So that takes out one thing that I was very interested in. I would think the other thing I would not do other than Friday is a Monday. I didn't see any data related to this, but I just think about how I show up to work on a Monday morning, like a little bit pissed off and kind of just like a little tired. And so not really the day I want to go under the knife. I feel like you just go straight middle of the week. If you can get a Wednesday, take that Wednesday.
Yeah, I think I'm doing Thursday. If I ever have to get a surgery anytime soon, picking Thursday for sure.
You know, vibes are good on a Thursday.
Yeah.
That's a really good pick. I like Wednesday because anyone who's coming to like help me out just got a little break in the middle of the week.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's move on to the main story, which is about AI. A lot of things are about AI, but this is a pretty big story because a significant set of data is in from Stanford University, and it shows how many people have adopted to using AI, specifically the large language model type of AI that you see out of ChatGPT. Most interestingly, perhaps, is that lower income Americans are using AI more often than higher income Americans, which is a reversal of the typical trend when it comes to adopting technology. But Ben, can you give us a quick breakdown of exactly what this study revealed about where and how people have been using these AI platforms?
Yeah, so the Stanford study really found that by late last year, we're starting to see just this uptick in AI generated or AI modified text in some areas where it wasn't quite so prevalent before. We're talking 18% of U.S. consumer complaints. We're talking 24% of corporate press releases and up to 15% of job postings, which, taken as a whole, still relatively small numbers, but just a big jump.
I mean, it sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah.
I mean, to think that some 30% of customer complaints are potentially being aided by AI.
Yeah, well, especially when you consider just the overall timeline here. And I know it's something in our world that has been spoken about truly nonstop and it's unavoidable. And please give us one day without having to talk about it. It's not everyone's experience. And so seeing that wider adoption, especially given that we're 2 years removed from it really kind of surging initially, it is quick in a kind of like the grand scheme of work time.
Yeah. And there is something interesting in these numbers as well, though, which is that a lot of this adoption really picked up quickly after the release of ChatGPT, which was in late 2022. But the researchers from Stanford found that usage stabilized a bit more last year. So the growth wasn't nearly as much, which, I mean, I think it's still too early to say, like, if that's going to be a long-term trend or if, maybe people are just waiting for like the truly next big thing. But, as I mentioned, though, one of the things that is really interesting here is that people with lower education levels showed slightly higher AI adoption than those with higher education levels.
Yeah, we kind of know how they're using it. Who is using it is getting really interesting because something that was found out in this study is very much against expectations given kind of like how tech adoption usually goes. It usually kind of goes to people with higher education levels first. We are seeing a higher level of AI adoption with people with lower education levels, which kind of is giving this idea that maybe AI really will be this equalizing tool that people have been talking about, as one potential positive of AI adoption going wide.
Yeah. So some of these uses you just mentioned earlier, like press releases, job postings, those are all very far removed from your average American. But I think Goldman Sachs had a survey about AI as well. What did that show about where people are using it?
So the Goldman Sachs study What was really interesting about it is in 2023, we were looking at 56% of small businesses in general who were using AI. That has taken a really big leap up to 69%, which is, again, really showing it's something we talk a lot about in like enterprise, large company settings and what that'll do to the job market. You could argue that this can create jobs through the small business world, allowing, business growth to take place there.
Yeah. And there was one really good example that Fox Business had about some of these small business owners, and a very positive story about AI. This owner found that by using an AI-powered scanner, they were able to shave hours off of their pricing duties, and that allowed him to pay his entry-level employees more. So that kind of goes against some of the fears that AI is going to come for the jobs and make us, frankly, worse at our jobs and lazier, et cetera. However, there is some evidence that suggests it could do that, I think. Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft Research had a study that the more people relied on AI, the less critical thinking they employed. Yeah. So, I mean, it could still be good. It could still be bad. Whatever. That's just the story about AI.
Yeah, I would also note, I don't need help to employ less critical thinking every day. That is just my life experience. So, I'm not going to put this entirely on AI, though it is obviously very interesting to see over time, in the same way that like probably a lot of people are doing basic math less now that they have a calculator in their pocket. Are we just going to see overall writing skills dropping significantly over time? It kind of tracks that it probably would. And this study seems to confirm that that's something we should look out for. But you can't put everything on AI, though, I guess I mentioned before, every single day, it's all we can talk about. So I guess you can, in some respect, put everything on AI.
Yeah, I guess so. That said, I feel like writing has deteriorated so much, even without AI. If you read letters from the 19th century, it's like they were basically all Hemingway back then, and not so much anymore. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We have a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter, so if you're not subscribed, please go get signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we will see you tomorrow.